As a business leader, I see the decisions that people are trying to make have an element of fear over which model do I choose, which AI provider do I choose. They may not even be there in 6 months. The model may not be the leading model in 6 months. And one of the challenges we were trying to solve with Unity was if we can speed up the go-to-market by pre-creating all of those integrations in the architecture, then it would be much easier to step new providers in, to step new technologies in. You lose the overhead of having to integrate and normalize each provider into your data sets. So if that architecture element is solved, now what you're looking to do is to choose models, to bring in providers. And what Boltzbit does is you give that ability to fully customize the behavior, but have that customization layer independent of the models that you're using. So you can change models over time, but retain the customizations, retain the training on your internal data.
That is correct.
That's so powerful.
And the only reason why we might consider changing or swapping the underlying open source model is if there are any benefits in the new architecture, the new semantic capability of that model. And clients can choose whatever open source core they want to use. Of course, we can recommend for the specific use case, but anyone is free to choose. Because it becomes irrelevant at the point where you fine-tune on your business workflows in your data. It does not matter. If your model is performing at 99% accuracy, why would you even consider swapping that out?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. So what we do is essentially what you guys are doing on the infrastructure, data integration and communication side, where you can swap best systems in and out. We're doing the same with our infrastructure and architecture, where we can just swap the latest, greatest open source model and architect around it. Our IP is in the architecture around it, not in the model itself. We're not a large language model company or provider like OpenAI is and Gemini and Meta, but it's the architecture around it that makes the difference and make the technology really work.
So let's look at some other hot topics. Something that comes up a lot in conversation, and certainly I see it as I read and do research into AI personally, is the idea of the MCP layer. Can you just tell us a little bit about your view on MCP?
Well, what the MCP is a unified communication protocol between your AI agent, or let's not use the word agent, just call it a fine-tuned model, and other toolings and information sources and programs you might have at your disposal. We've been dealing with MCP type of solutions in the financial services industry for a very long time, and those are just normalized APIs or certain standardized protocol of communication between systems, for example, FIX. So it's nothing new to me. And I think MCP is still very overhyped and clunky because it's not mature yet to the extent that we've seen APIs and standard protocols maturing in the financial services domain. MCP is needed when you're working with a generic model that might not know when and how to access the data that it currently needs. However, if you have a model fully trained and adapted to your business workflows and data, MCPs are not always needed and become, I wouldn't call it obsolete at some point, but become unnecessary and might be additional overhead that you don't want to deal with.
So I guess one of the distinctions we always have in financial services is it's a highly specialized industry, which is targeting highly specialized applications. The real challenge isn't how can I have a generic interface that I'm facing against generic models. It's how can I have unified custom interfaces facing custom models. I need access to my own data, my own training, my own IP, and I want to be able to apply it to a normalized integration layer where I can talk to my different trading applications, but in a very specific way. So to a certain extent, our view of MCP is the Unity layer itself, the single API that we're providing, replaces the need for any kind of generic interface because actually it's delivering all available data in a normalized source in real time, including historical data directly to your custom application, to your custom LLM. And that's really, again, the two sides of the challenge. One of them is, how do I find a product that integrates everything? And the second one is, how do I build a model that can do my actions and can understand my private data in response to accessing that single API?
Right. Think about what we're doing between Boltzbit and Quod Unity. We're creating two unified layers, one for data access and normalization, and the other one for call it generic intelligence. So we overlay the intelligence layer on top of Unity, benefit from the single connectivity point of the data and being able to perform all the functions the business wants to perform. Now, MCP would be useful if you have an internal system that gives access to people externally to query and interact with. Considering that in most cases, our clients prefer to deploy on-premise, both Unity and Boltzbit, there's no need for that external connection if we have a certified layer between the intelligence piece and the data aggregation and infrastructure service. So that negates the usage of MCP solutions because we have something much more performant.
Boltzbit and Unity, one out-of-the-box, fully functional AI and data architecture.
That is correct.